Welcome to the Invite Health podcast, where our degreed healthcare professionals are excited to offer you the most important health and wellness information you need to make informed choices about your health. You can learn more about the products discussed in each of these episodes and all that Invite Health has to offer at www.invitehealth.com/podcast. First-time customers can use promo code podcast at checkout for an additional 15% off your first purchase. Let's get started.
Foods matter, nutrients matter, vitamins matter, minerals matter, all of these things matter, which is why as a country we do so poorly when it comes to looking at different biochemical indicators for our overall health. The CDC actually does a very comprehensive nutritional report looking at 58 different biochemical indicators in the U.S. population to give scientists an idea as to the overall basic health of the nation. And we already know this just from the study that they did out of the University of North Carolina, where they were able to determine that only 12% of Americans are considered to be metabolically healthy. Well, this is certainly an issue when people don't take their diet seriously, when people are not taking something as basic and simple as a multivitamin, which is why I want to talk about this today. I am Amanda Williams, MD, MPH, and I want to talk about different nutritional deficiencies that are incredibly common throughout the United States. And the deficiencies can lead to significant issues in our overall health. When we talk about our mental clarity, when we talk about our energy status, you see a lot of Americans where it seems like they're just kind of walking through life dragging in a sense. And this can be because of these nutritional deficiencies. We see it very common in younger adults in the United States, which is really shameful because you should be the ones who have the most energy out there where you're not getting run down. But because of poor dietary intake and because of the lack of awareness of trying to cover those gaps in your diet and making sure that you're taking something like a basic multivitamin, this is why we see such a significant shift. And when they look at different nutritional deficiencies in the United States, we can see the different vitamins that are clearly a problem in terms of our dietary intake. When you look at things like vitamin B6, when we look at vitamin D, when we look at iron, especially in women, this is a major issue. We look at vitamin C, and we know vitamin C plays a significant role in maintaining our immune defenses and maintaining the health of our blood vessels, our skin. We think about vitamin C in its role with eye health. And we know that the percent of Americans who are deficient in these basic essential vitamins and minerals is really quite astonishing. So what can we be doing about that? How is it that we can get Americans on to that health train where we say, number one, let's first look at our foods. Let's make sure that we are taking in foods that actually have some substance to them, not this filler food, all these highly processed foods that are pretty much just loaded down with bad fats and sugars. We need to be eating whole foods, foods that are actually going to yield us natural sources of these vitamins and minerals. It's really very, very important. When you look at micronutrient inadequacies within the United States, it is alarming. And we know that, the lack of physical activity and not eating good foods, eating foods that are kind of giving you this high sugar rush, but then it crashes you. So those nutrient poor diets, this is a direct causal effect to so many of the chronic disease states out there. We look at things like type 2 diabetes. We look at cardiovascular disease. We can look at bone loss. All of these things that we know are, for the most part, very preventable if we were just getting the appropriate nutrients from our diet. When you look at major public health issues in this country, we know things like metabolic syndrome and type 2 diabetes and hypertension and high cholesterol are all very common and on the rise. We know that obesity is certainly on the rise. Seeing this now trickling into childhood obesity, which is really a crying shame. And we have to look at the lack of nutrients in a standard American diet. And knowing that the typical American diet is significantly low in just the basic essential vitamins and minerals. So Americans take in high energy foods. Like I mentioned, the bad carbohydrates, the high sugar foods, the high fat foods, which are not doing anything to support the natural processes that must occur each and every single day in the body for us to function properly. Now, the body is a very well-oiled machine, so it can fend off a lot of this for a great many years. And there's other factors that come into play. We can look at environmental factors, we can look at genetic factors. But what we do know is that when it comes to doing full nutritional assessments within populations, the United States just does horrible. When we look at these nutritional biomarkers, this is a major problem and it's ongoing. It is getting worse and not better. So what can we do about it? Well, we have to think about just the basics. Okay, we know we need to have vitamins and minerals. We know we require those vitamins and minerals for so many different functions in the body, for detoxification, for the immune system. And if we don't have them, what is the simple fix to that? Well, let's just incorporate in a multivitamin, multi-mineral formulation. And if you go to our website, invitehealth.com, you will find a whole slew of different options when it comes to vitamins and minerals. So we have our core multivitamin, which is very, very comprehensive. We have the men's multi, we have the women's multi, we have the performance, we have our multi-energy powder. So there's a lot of different ways for you to get these essential vitamins and minerals into your system. And we know that we need all of those B vitamins, B6, B12, folate. We have to have vitamin D. We know that things like magnesium and selenium and zinc are all very critical to the functionality of so many things in our body. If we're low in iron, if we're low in zinc, this can impact thyroid function, for example, which can slow down someone's metabolic rate, which leaves you more prone to potential weight gain. I mean, these are things that we should just take a step back and say, why is it as a nation we are so incredibly unhealthy? And understanding that these biomarkers that we are looking at and assessing are important because they are directly correlated to markers for inflammation, for example. And we know that backbone to all chronic disease states comes down to inflammation. But it starts with foods first, which is why I'm such a stickler on that, because you can go back and you can look at the beginning of modern medicine and we can say, let food be thy medicine. And there is a reason for that. Understanding all of these issues that have been kind of just on a steady trend or a steady tick upwards in this country. We look at it as the convenience of having all of these, ready to go meals and fast food, and everyone's, rushing around. No one has time to cook or eat healthy foods, or it's, cost prohibitive, but we are still lacking the exposure to adequate nutrients. I mean, look at the lack of green leafy vegetables. They did a study in Georgia where they were seeing defects in heart function in an adolescent population because of the lack of green leafy vegetables. I mean, this type of stuff should be absolutely alarming. When we look at how the U.S. population does as a whole, we know that when it comes to the requirement, how much are we supposed to be getting? Remember, this is usually a fairly low bar. We know that 88% of Americans don't get the daily requirement for vitamin D. When it comes to vitamin E, it's over 50%. When we look at magnesium, once again, we are in that 50% range that we're just not getting enough from the foods that we take in. When we look at things like potassium and choline, which is so important, that choline is so incredibly important for stress response, for brain activity. But yet over 90% of Americans are not getting adequate choline exposure from their diet. And then we look at vitamin K that we know we have to have for proper cardiovascular function, for bone health. And close to 70% are not getting that. That tells you something about the state of our health. And this is all directly correlated. So if we don't start doing something earlier in our lives, then what happens is we get into the 5th, 6th, 7th decade of life and we start to see this tailspin out of control of all of these health issues that start to compile. We know that when it comes to calcium intake, as Americans, we do horrible with this. So then we can fast forward, 4 decades and say, well, no wonder why we have such bad statistics when it comes to osteopenia and osteoporosis. When we look at issues with iron deficiency, then we can clearly correlate that with subclinical hypothyroidism and understanding why this is such a prevalent issue in this country, understanding why hypertension is such an issue when you look at the correlation with magnesium deficiencies in this country. So there are things that you should be doing on a daily basis, which includes, at minimum, just taking in a multivitamin. There was a study that was published in the American Journal of Medicine where they were looking at vitamin D insufficiency in healthy young adults and recognizing that long-term vitamin D insufficiency can cause secondary issues with hyperparathyroidism, with bone loss, and trying to determine the rate of even different cancer risk because of having low levels of vitamin D. So you're looking at a group of people who are quote unquote healthy. And in this study that they did this screening program at Boston University. They took a group of healthy individuals and they had them divided into 4 different age groups. They had people between 18 and 29, people between 30 and 39, 40 and 49, and above 50 years old. And they were giving them a questionnaire looking at their intake of food, looking at if they were taking supplements that contain vitamin D, and then they did their serum 25 hydroxy vitamin D level. And they were also looking at their parathyroid hormone levels. And it was really interesting how they were able to determine how vitamin D insufficiency was really a valuable predictor to things that could happen in the future. And recognizing that with low dietary intake of vitamin D, how this could in the future once again, have an impact on maybe having a higher risk for the development of prostate cancer in males or breast cancer in females. These are things that we should not just poo-poo down. These are things that people should know about. Unfortunately, you don't hear about these things in the news. We don't hear enough about the importance of healthy dietary intake and that the fact that most of our soil is not dense enough. They did a study in Texas where they were doing soil sampling from the 1950s and comparing it to current times, and they recognize that all of these different vitamin and mineral levels within the soil in the United States is incredibly stripped of all of these essential minerals at the rates that they used to be in 1950. So it's like we fast forward, we have all of these processed foods, we have foods that are coming from nature but aren't as rich in nutrients as they once used to be. And now recognizing from clinical research trials that, even young adults, people 18 to 29 years old, have an equal risk of some of these long-term health implications because of lack of micronutrients in their diet. These are the things that we need to focus on, and we need to really start to adhere to a healthier lifestyle and say, how can I incorporate in high antioxidant foods that naturally have vitamins and minerals, and then still, even with that being said, knowing that those nutrients may not be as strong as they once used to be, still covering those bases with utilizing a very comprehensive multivitamin, multimineral formulation. And at the end of the day, if we can start to focus on those things, then maybe we won't have as many shortfalls when it comes to micronutrient deficiencies. All of these things matter. I mean, they matter to our immune system. They matter to so many different functionalities. Like I mentioned, detoxification. If we're lacking certain vitamins and minerals, the body will struggle to remove harmful toxins that we are exposed to. We have to always be aware of these things. There is a reason why we come designed, fully equipped with these vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. And if we are not continuously replenishing those over time, things will start to go awry. And once you go down that path, it's a very difficult feat to try and come back from that. So I definitely encourage people to always make sure that they're getting comprehensive blood work done on a regular basis. Look at your 25-hydroxy vitamin D level. Look and see, do you fall into that category of deficiency or insufficiency? Make sure that you are incorporating a multivitamin, multimineral into your routine. And there are so many different options, as I had mentioned. So if you go to the website and you look, you will see the different choices that you have. You have the multi-energy powder for those who are on the go and just want to take a scoop of that, add it in with their water, and you have all of your vitamins and minerals to get you through the day that help at that cellular level. We have the men's multi, we have the women's multi, we have the core multivitamin for those who are looking for that energy ability. Looking at the performance multivitamin is a really good option as well. But I do like to stress that nutritional deficiencies are real. This is not something that, you just see in this third world country. I mean, they do a complete biochemical indicator study and evaluation within the United States, and they are able to determine, out of looking at those over 58 different markers, that as a country as a whole, we do horrible when it comes to proper intake of these essential vitamins and minerals. And it's something that we shouldn't just turn a blind eye to and wait until something goes wrong in our body. We should be proactive and incorporate a multivitamin and try to adhere to a healthy diet as well as a healthy lifestyle. So that is all that I have for you for today. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to the Invite Health podcast. Remember, you can find all of our episodes for free wherever you listen to podcasts, or by visiting invitehealth.com/podcast. Now, do make sure that you subscribe and leave us a review. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health, and we will see you next time for another episode of the Invite Health podcast.